soft like flower do. Sure, I know that just them has a story.
Hi, I'm Effie Barker. We are right here in downtown. When you say we're not going away with these issues, what are those issues? Good evening. Welcome to the special edition of I'm Effie Barker. So we are back with our guest, Ms. Amanda Dios Davidson. What did you think of the UK before moving here that changed your perception?
Before moving over, I thought, there's a lot of open space, especially where my husband's family lives. I liked that everybody was quite friendly. And again, like I said, I like that the NHS. Like, we were here visiting once when my daughter was, I think she was about 2, and she had a seizure while we were here in the UK. We weren't living here at the time. And they took such great care of her. And the first question wasn't, how are you going to pay for this, like they do in the US? They took care of her. They didn't ask about how we were going to pay. They didn't ask, what our insurance was. They just took care of her. And that's the way it should be.
That is really very powerful. First thing though that we ask is not about how are you going to pay for this, and that's
exactly. And that's very. It's, as a parent, it relieves a lot of stress too, because always in the back of the mind when living in the States was, gosh, it's gonna be thousands of dollars, But here, you don't have to think about that. You just have to focus your attention entirely on your child.
What do you wish was different here in the UK?
I wish that more funding was allocated for the NHS. I worry that since it's so underfunded, it's gonna end up being like how it is in the States with private insurance companies. And I really hope it doesn't go that direction. And that's pretty much the only thing that I wish to change, that more funding would go into the NHS.
Do you consider yourself more of an immigrant or an expat?
Consider myself an immigrant. I didn't move over here for work. So I always say I am an immigrant, and people are sometimes shocked because they have these assumptions about what an immigrant looks like, what an immigrant sounds like. And they hear me and they're like, no, you're not an immigrant, you're an expat. No, I'm an immigrant because I did not come over here for work. So people are quite shocked, but yeah, that's true. I still see myself as an immigrant.
Why do you think they say that? Like, there's sort of like a different connotation of an immigrant and an expat.
Probably because I'm from America and I speak English, that they think I'm an expat as opposed to an immigrant. There's obviously some racial undertones there. They think an immigrant looks and sounds a certain way. And so when they see me and hear me talk, they think, no, she's not an immigrant. And I always remind them, yes, I am.
Okay, so before you open your mouth and hear you talk with an American twang, you look like an immigrant. But when you open, you start talking, now you become an expat.
Exactly. That's how it's viewed.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing.
But I do. Yeah, it's amazing how their view changes, but that's just how it is.
Would you say
it is racial?
Would you say that there is racism here?
Oh yes, in the UK, definitely. A lot of people like to say there isn't because it doesn't affect them personally, but it is here. There's been times where we would take the ferry over to Scotland as a foot passenger, and you don't go through like immigration or anything because I'm going from one UK country to another, but I do get stopped. If it's just me, if I'm not with my husband and kids, I'll get stopped. Like, why are you visiting here? And I'll have to break up my BRP card, or then my husband will come along with his Scottish accent. It's like, that's why I'm here. But that's pretty much the only time I think I've ever experienced some kind of discrimination. But it is really obvious in some points, in some parts. Haven't really experienced it here, but it is happening here as well in Northern Ireland. There is racism.
That is really disappointing, but at the same time, it's not really surprising, though. Were you thinking of did you expect this before, or was this already, did you see this coming when you were still in America, or you just didn't know it?
I guess I had it in the back of my mind that it was like this. But as coming as a visitor, when we would go to Scotland, coming as a tourist, when we go to Scotland, I didn't see it. Coming here to live and being ingrained in society here, I do see it more. I do notice it more, and it's not really as outwardly here as maybe it is in other parts of the country. It is more like undertones, and you'll see people saying things like, there's shortage of places of secondary schools here, and you'll hear people say, well, they should give those places to those born here, and they'll kind of make references to immigrants taking all the spots, and it's like, oh, no, 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 you're using immigrants as scapegoats. That's not what's happening here. What's happening is the schools are being underfunded, which is why they can't place every single student in their desired school. So you do see it.
What would you say about that? What do you say about whatever what you've experienced, especially that encounter in the, was it in the ferry?
um I don't. Well, when they ask me like, "What are you doing here?" That's when I take out my BRP card and I say, "I'm here visiting my in-laws." And usually, like my father-in-law will be just right there on the other side because it's not really a border
Yeah.
per se there. So then sometimes my father-in-law will come up and say, "Oh, how are you?" in his heavy Scottish accent, and then it's okay. So I've never been questioned beyond what are you doing here. I've never been pulled aside or anything. But
They
yeah,
ask
if
you what you're doing here.
if I hear something though, somebody saying something, I will say something, because when you don't say something, you let it slide, you're complying. You, just because it doesn't affect you directly doesn't mean you have to step away. You have to say something when you hear something like that. Yeah.
So did you say something?
I did. I always say, like, I live here. I live in the UK. I'm visiting. And I break out my BRP card. And then usually what happens at that point, my husband's coming along or my father-in-law's there. And they can tell by their accent that, yeah, my story's valid. I do live here, or I know people here.
I like how you phrase it, that suddenly your story is valid.
Yeah,
The
it's
accent,
valid. Only because of the accent from my father-in-law and my husband. Yeah,
the accent
that's when it
makes the
becomes valid.
magic.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what would happen if they didn't appear at that moment. I have no idea what would have happened. I don't know if my BRP card would have been enough,
Wow.
or if something else would have happened. No idea.
You know, this is really very powerful, because I am almost 100% sure that a lot of people, not only in America, but around the world, do not know what American women, specifically to those who moved and lived here and started a family, it goes through. They think that these things just happen to immigrants coming from the Commonwealth, from Asia or other,
Hmm.
Pakistan, or even Filipinos experience.
Hmm.
They think that we Americans just assimilate and just fit in right away. But hearing these
Hmm.
stories, it's not, and there's really more to it.
Hmm. Yeah, it does take a while to just kind of fall into it and be comfortable. It's not as easy as what you see like on paper. Like, they speak English, I speak English, I'll just move over. And that's not that easy. It is almost not necessarily different language, but just different words for different things. And like I had mentioned earlier, I'd go to the grocery store and be on my phone Googling, what is this called in the UK? Because it's different. Like in America, it's cornstarch. Here, it's corn flour. I was looking all over for it. Okay, what is it called here? And that's how I was able to find it. So it's just those kind of things.
Would you say that there are things that you had more of a luxury when you're in America and you don't have it here anymore? Was there Is there anything?
A luxury in America. God, Target. um, big parking lots, big parking spaces. In America, you could go to a mall and it's actually a mall. Here in Northern Ireland, we don't really have anything like that. But in America, you go to one spot and you can get everything you need. Here, you have to go to different places to get something. And it took a while to find what the place was and
Mm.
where I could get what like that I could get in America. So yeah, I think in America, I did really maybe take for granted places like Target and Costco and Trader Joe's and all that. And I do miss that going to one place and getting everything on my list.
So you missed that, but would you say you struggled on that part or no?
At first, I did. At
Mm.
first, I did. I struggled because it was like, okay, I need this and this and this. I'll just go to a store and they'll have all of it. Well, it's not the same because Target would have like home goods and like plates and all this other stuff along with food. You can't really do that here. It's one store for different things. Like there's a grocery store, there's a homeware store, there's a butcher, there's a bakery. It's not the same. You have to go to different places to
You
get different
drive.
things, not just one thing.
Yeah. Would you say that you
Mhm.
are um more have the freedom to do what you want when you were in the States or get
I
what
think,
you want?
yeah, I feel that way because where I was living, I was born and raised there. I knew where everything was, how everything worked. I knew the people. So it was very easy for me to think, okay, I need this. All right, I know exactly where to go and how to get there and all that. As opposed to here, I still find myself Googling, like, where can I get this? Because I have no idea. No.
Was it a shock for you?
Um, I kind of had an idea. I mean, obviously knew there wasn't like a Target here. Um, but yeah, I'd go into town and I'd be like, oh, gosh, I have to go into every store to get everything that I need. I can't just pop in. It's going to take me longer than I thought.
You know what they say? For Americans, we're spoiled Americans.
We are.
And
We
would you say you
definitely
didn't
are.
realize that until you moved out and you realize what you've had?
Yeah, yeah. But you give some, you lose some. So I'm perfectly fine with where I am now. When I do go back to the States, I will of course pop into Target just to
Mm.
be like,
Mhm.
wow, I miss this place. But
You
yeah.
you do felt it when you got there.
Yeah, yeah. When I get there, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I haven't lived without this for so long, and I'm
Mhm.
going back to the States next month, so that's on my bucket list to go to Target again and just kind of
Okay.
look around and be like, oh,
Let me
I
know
miss
and you can
this.
get me some stuff in your Target.
I
um
know.
yeah, in terms of your interaction with the people here and people that in your community, um would you would you consider yourself or would you feel like you are more of a reserve now, as they say British are reserve?
Mm, no, I don't think I am. I think at first when I first moved here, and I go into a store or anywhere, I wouldn't want to speak up because then I'd get the inevitable question of, "Are you a tourist? And, oh, you live here, and why did you move?" It just turns into this whole conversation. But now when I go somewhere and I'm not shy about asking for things or saying things anymore. If people notice my American accent, okay, then I'll have a conversation. But yeah, before when I moved here, I just didn't. I mean, my husband do all the talking, so it's like, no, you. We go to a restaurant, like, can you order for me? Because I don't want to, get into the question thing. But now I'm just, people are
Mhm.
curious.
Mm.
They're gonna ask. I'm gonna get it anyway. Might as well
Yeah.
just head into it.
There really a moment that really made you flustered about the system?
The system in regards to what, like
Like just the
the
way,
immigration.
yeah, no, not the immigration, but like just with everything, like culturally, anything that
Mhm.
make you really, or an incident, something about, let's say, an HS process, or just the way things are, and it made you flustered.
Yeah, yeah, like here in Northern Ireland, you don't pay for prescriptions. I know in England, I think you do. And it's the same in Scotland. You don't pay for prescriptions. So when I first moved here and I would have to pick up a prescription, they'd hand me the prescription and I'd stand there like practically with my card out, my bank card out, like,
Mm.
okay, how much do I pay? Like, no, 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 you don't pay anything. And still sometimes when I go pick up a prescription at the pharmacy and they hand it to me, I'm still like waiting for them to tell me how much it is. It just takes a while because as an American, you're
Yeah,
ingrained that you have to pay for your medication, but here you don't.
right.
So I'm always awkwardly standing there in the pharmacy.
Yeah. Well, although that's a good thing though, because hey, you're not paying
Yeah, it's a
anything.
good thing.
But was
Yeah,
there an
but yeah, there's
instant?
always that awkward pause.
Right. Let's talk about the job. Are you working now or
No, I'm not, but I am looking for part-time work.
right? How has it been applying, looking for a job?
Um, it's been difficult. I think it's because people see the gap in my CV and think, what does she have to offer? You know, um, no, it's just been difficult. I've started looking for a year now, and I haven't been able to find any part-time work. I think it does put a lot of people off that my previous jobs were in America, and they maybe think, can she even work here? Even though they have a question online when you apply for a job, are you eligible to work in the UK? And I always say yes. Maybe they see that and think, oh, she can't work here because I don't know if she can work in the UK, or maybe they just see the gap in my CV. So there's been a struggle in that aspect, but I think it more has to do with the gap than
Mm.
being a non citizen.
Do you reckon if in the States that's an issue, if there's a gap, that much of an issue?
Mm, maybe in some parts of America it wouldn't be an issue, but I
Mm.
think where I'm from in the Silicon Valley, where it's very fast paced, and somebody, it may be more of an issue there.
Is that because there are pool of candidates? Because I think that if there are less candidates, there are less people looking, well, they don't have any much choice but to take this person that's there. Or there's
Yeah, that could be it.
Mm. You mentioned earlier that you're visiting California. Was it next month?
I'm actually visiting New York City. That's where my sister lives,
Oh, okay.
and she's having another baby, so I'm going over to help.
Mm-hmm. And any plans, or is this really where you call home? Could you call home the UK now?
I do. Yeah, sometime the last time I went to California was in May, and it was almost foreign to me because so many things have changed since
Mm-hmm.
I was last there. Um, yeah, it was weird because I was staying in San Francisco, and it was like, wow, it's so different, and it doesn't feel like home. I mean, I still miss California, and I still like to go visit, but it doesn't feel like home anymore.
Mm.
Like it just feels different, and here it doesn't exactly feel like home, but it feels more of a home than California does.
Mm. So you don't you could you imagine still yourself living there in California or
No,
no?
no,
Okay.
we would never move back. No, one is because we sold our house there. It was what, probably about 1,700 square foot house in the Silicon Valley. No yard, pretty much. We're in the suburban area, heavily populated area. We just had a pool, and that was pretty much our yard. We sold that house for almost $1 million in 2016. Here we have a house twice the size with land, and it was half the price of our house in California. So I don't think we could even
Mm.
afford to move
Right,
back to California.
right. But you say you are more settled here now, and this is home for you, and that's
Mhm.
not all really people who migrated to another states would eventually, but sometimes at the back of their mind, or it's still that desire that this is the temporary, and one day I will be back. That sort of become a dream for them. But it's good that you've actually settled here and
Mhm.
fitted
Yes.
in, I suppose, and the kids as
Mhm.
well, right? Well,
Yeah. Kids are in school. They're settled in as well.
that's really fantastic. People who are thinking of migrating here, as in closing, thinking or coming here, and for people who are already here and just got here, do you have any
Mhm.
message for them?
It takes time. Give it a chance. The first couple months, or the first year, even may seem really daunting and depressing, and you may feel lonely. But give it a chance. It takes time to feel comfortable. It takes time to find your people. It takes time to find your places. I mean, it took me a year to find friends here. I have a great group of friends, mostly American. I've joined groups. I do activities, but yeah, you just take your time. It's not just going to fall on your lap. You have to take your time and you have to put in the work if you want to build a life here. You can't just expect it to happen.
Right. Um, just because you mentioned that, and I'm going to tap in about friendship, you say mostly Americans. With the friendship that you've made with the Americans, is that sort of like a real friendship? And do you have British friends as well? And is that the same level of closeness? That meaning that you share secrets and stuff? What's the difference?
Yeah. Most of my friends are American, but I am in a dance group, and the people in my dance group, it's an international dance group, so they're from all over. So there's somebody from Italy, there's somebody from France, there's a couple of people from Mexico, and there's actually a couple of people from Northern Ireland in that group as well. But I think, especially because where I am here in the country, everybody kind of knows everybody, and they've had known everybody since they were young. It was harder to make friends with locals here because it's such a tight knit community, and people just they've known each other forever. So it's kind of hard to get in that because people have their groups, their ways, and they're set in them, which is fine. And I have my set of friends.
It's probably more easy to connect with the fellow Americans
Yeah.
because we understand each other. And the same thing as everybody is experiencing the same way, probably the immigrants. I did that too here, although I'm a Filipino American, but it's kind of to connect to them. And because I've been away from the country, more like Americanized, and I don't have any American friends here. I haven't met anyone here in American. They're more British, yeah. Thank you so much for squeezing us to your really very busy schedule. This Filipino American now living in the Northern Ireland. Or I always think of Northern Ireland. Every time I mention Northern Ireland, I always think of Belfast. I don't know. It's I think I heard it a lot even way before back in the Philippines. But thank you so much for sharing me and us, the listeners. It is available though in America. The web radio, it is available in America. So our fellow Filipino Americans, Filipino and Americans are able to listen to our stories and appreciate it. And all the best to everything and all your endeavors. Thank you, Amanda.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, bye.
Bye. That's all for today. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in and for staying with me for this 2 hour show. Till next Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. only here on Love the Beat Radio, LDBR.